All right. I believe this will be us. We might still have a couple who wander in over the next few minutes, but as always, these are recorded as well for future review and for other members to take advantage of online. But again, my name is Robert Sorensen. I'm your Director of Sports and Wellness. I love being able to teach about things that help us live longer, healthier, higher potential. It's just a passion of mine. So today we're continuing on that trend. 2 months ago we spoke about sleep. Last month we spoke about the power of fasting. And today we've got our lecture focusing on navigating proper hydration and cramp prevention. If you've ever had cramping before, you know it very well. It's not a very pleasant experience. It's something that I believe we all want to try to avoid at all costs. And then, of course, hydration. With us being a more active group, there is definitely a right and a wrong protocol to hydrate appropriately. So we'll dig into the science associated with all of those things. As always, as we go through the slide deck, if you have questions, feel free to pop a hand up. If it's something that we can address in the moment, I'll absolutely do it. If it's something that'll be touched on a little later on in the slideshow, I'll tell you to hold the question. So starting with why are we here? Why are we interested in this information? Again, we see that squaring of the curve because we want to live longer, we want to live better, we want to be healthier over the course of time. So ideally what that looks like is our quality of life stays very, very high for a very long window of time, and that at a certain point in time we have a very steep decline leading ultimately to our passing. This squaring of the curve model avoids that slow, steady descent into sickness, descent into what I'm sure we've seen loved ones go through, and we want to do everything within our power to avoid that. Something very, very powerful that can assist with that is hydration. So digging into the information about hydration so that you don't have to, I work through the research, I work through the meta-analyses, I use my own experience. Hydration is something that I have a very strong background in. I've done quite a number of ultra-distance style events, and to be able to do ultra-distance style events well in excess of 24 hours in duration, hydration is a key. You can't keep moving unless you're hydrating across that window of time. So I'll share a little bit about my experience in that as we go through today's presentation. There we are. So hydration is a longevity variable. It is arguably the biggest influencer or return on investment associated with human performance. Human performance being how we respond during exercise, how we respond during activity, how our body responds to sickness, how our body acts in wellness, because of all of these different things that it influences. Cellular function, what we do on a biological level, brain performance, how we think, how we react, blood pressure, whether you have high or low blood pressure, the response of getting up very quickly. You may have had that dizzying feeling before. That's largely attributed to hydration. Muscle contraction, so the strength and the speed of a muscle during exercise. Recovery, allowing you to go into the gym, work hard, recover well so that you can go into the gym and work hard again the next day. And then hormonal signaling. Super, super strongly related to hydration, specifically because of the association with electrolytes. So we, as humans, are about 60% water. You've likely heard this before. Of that 60% water, 2/3 of us are what's considered intracellular fluid, and then 1/3 is extracellular fluid. So that first portion, that intracellular aspect, is everything that is being held inside of our cells. So our red blood cells and our white blood cells. Very, very high concentration of water. This is also where our electrolytes are held. So if you're somebody who has a low white blood cell count, or if you have a low red blood cell count, Or if you injure yourself and you're bleeding very badly, or if you have a surgery that's required that incorporates a lot of blood loss, we're also losing a good portion of our hydration, and more importantly, we're also losing a significant, actually all of our electrolytes. That other 1/3 is what's considered extracellular fluid, so outside of the cell. It's in all of the area in between our red blood cells and in between our white blood cells. Think of it as your intracellular fluid is all those rafts going down a lazy river. That lazy river then is the extracellular fluid that they're kind of flowing down. So primarily between cells, a very small amount of it is located in the blood, and then it's also located in our transcellular fluid. So our transcellular fluid would be our spinal canal, our spinal fluid, the fluid that surrounds our brain, some of the fluid surrounding our tissues. Very, very trivial amount. I believe it's about 1% of our body fluid is transcellular. But what's interesting is, although only 1/3 of us is extracellular fluid, that's the component that regulates blood pressure and circulation. So we do have these two different aspects, and each of them have very, very important functions inside of the body. So there's a lot of misnomers associated with dehydration, but there's actually two different forms or two different types of dehydration. We have dehydration as it's considered, and then we have something called volume depletion. And both of these things can happen in tandem with each other, or they can happen individually. So dehydration formally is understood as the loss of water. So if right now, we are all losing water because we're respirating. When you're breathing, you're inhaling carbon dioxide, and as you're exhaling, we're exhaling a little bit of water vapor. We're not losing electrolytes because we're not exerting any sort of effort, and it's not warm enough in this room for us to be sweating in a way that we're losing electrolytes. That's reserved more for the term or the regulatory system or function considered volume depletion. Volume depletion happens much more in hot, humid environments and also when you're exercising. That's water loss. That also includes electrolyte loss, specifically sodium. So it's possible that you can lose water without electrolytes, and it's also possible that you lose water with electrolytes. It's important to understand the difference of both because it really becomes a key driver in how you should be refueling your body, whether it's okay just to be drinking more water or if you should be drinking more water and with some form of an electrolyte replacement incorporated into it. So what happens during dehydration? Nothing good. Signs and symptoms of dehydration: a higher than normal heart rate. That's an easy telltale sign. So if we took you as an individual and we had you in a hydrated state and a dehydrated state, just sitting in a room, in that hydrated state, your heart rate is going to be lower. In a dehydrated state, your heart rate is going to be higher. When your heart rate is naturally higher, it influences a lot of other aspects of our physiology. When we look for signs of dehydration, we see dryness of the skin. It doesn't have that nice oily or semi-permeable feel to it. It ends up, in some situations, appearing very white or textured, flaky, if you will. Another sign of dehydration. Increased kidney strain. When we're dehydrated, it forces our kidneys to work much harder, which is very important if you're somebody who is on, say, dialysis or has a history of kidney issues. We have to focus in and dial a little bit more on addressing hydration status. Dizziness, headaches, body aches, and cramping are signs of dehydration. And then finally, lack of urine output. When we're dehydrated, we tend to urinate less. Our body is holds on to what it has. And many of us in this room are athletes, whether you know it or not. If you are an active person, you're an athlete to me. You're somebody who uses the gym. You're somebody who plays bocce or plays tennis, pickleball, everything else in between. You're doing something that's causing you to lose not just water, but water and electrolytes. So to emphasize the point of our athletic considerations, your power output, say we're doing a bench press in the gym. If you're 1 to 2% dehydrated or 1 to 2% at a loss of water, that's going to influence your power output by between 5 and 10%. So if you're serving in tennis, 10% power out loss just by 1% loss of water. We usually see dizziness, a loss of focus, and cramping when we get more to that 4 to 5% deficit in body mass of water. I really like this graph over on the right-hand side. We have two line graphs. That bottom line is somebody who is in a hydrated state while exercising. That top line is showing somebody in a dehydrated state. Our bottom axis is duration of exercise, and our vertical axis is our heart rate. So you can see that as somebody stays hydrated over the course of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 90 minutes of exercise, they're able to maintain a much steadier heart rate. Those who allow themselves to get into a dehydrated state, their heart rate slowly spikes up. Here's at a 1% loss of body weight in water. Here's at a 2% loss of body weight in water. So you see that just there, 2% loss of body weight in water is causing your heart rate to jump by an additional 10 beats per minute, which during activity is quite significant and totally controllable. All we have to do is refuel appropriately. Something that water or liquid can be used for is to address blood pressure and dizziness caused by dehydration. So if you're somebody who's ever experienced going from a seated position to standing up very quickly and having that sensation of being a little bit dizzy or seeing stars, that's something considered orthostatic hypotension. If you were to drink between 10 and 16 ounces of water immediately, it gives your body an instant boost in blood pressure and helps with circulation. So that issue immediately goes away. Super simple trick, immediate impact on our physiology. It's temporary, requires no medication, and I know this group, as we've discussed through some of the previous lectures, medication should be a last case scenario for use. So let's use water to help with our dizziness instead of reaching for a medication to help with our dizziness. So how do we lose fluid? We mentioned already that by breathing, we're losing water. And of course, when we're exercising, our respiration, our breathing is more rapid, so we're losing more water. But there's also other ways. Urine output. Urine is going to be predicated by the amount of fluid that you drink. Typically, the more water you drink in, the more water that we expel out. Through body surface area, through sweat, which is impacted by temperature. Again, if we were to hold this lecture outside in the sun, we're going to start to sweat. That sweat is going to be mostly water, again, not too much electrolyte component to it. Respiration we touched on, which is going to be impacted by activity level, and then through diuretics, alcohol and caffeine. We've all experienced, after we have our morning coffee, We end up having to urinate a little bit quicker than if we were to have a morning cup of water, because it's suppressing the specific hormone in the body, the antidiuretic hormone that causes you to retain water. It instead causes you to expel. So how do we hydrate properly? There are some considerations to make, and there are some simple calculations to get to that conclusion. But a lot of it is predicated on 4 different variables. Age and gender. Age, as we get older, we lose more of that sensation or that driver of thirst. So think about it as yourself. When was the last time you really felt thirsty? Maybe when you're younger, you would feel that quite a bit more. As we age, we don't get that sensation quite as much. So allowing thirst to be the indicator of when it's time to drink is no longer appropriate. We need to be proactive with our response. And that's going to be the same for both men and women. Where thirst becomes more blunted, we have to be a little bit more proactive in getting water or some sort of fluid back into the body. Exercise patterns are going to influence what we need to do to hydrate properly. As the summer months are amongst us, we try to avoid the middle of the day for our outdoor activities because we are going to sweat and quite a bit more. Our heart rate ends up increasing quite a bit more during the same type of exercise. So we can look at adjusting our pattern. Overall level of activity, if you're a high level exerciser who exercises for very long windows of time, you need to hydrate a little bit more than somebody who doesn't exercise quite as long. And then temperature, of course, plays into it significantly as well. So this is another really nice, helpful guide that shows the required amount of water in liters based on your activity level. And activity level is really self-interpreted. We have sedentary. So if you were a sedentary individual, you sit in front of the computer, you lounge on the couch. None of you are those people, but that individual, 4 liters of water today, very general guide. As we bump up, you're a little bit active, exercising maybe once a day, 30, 45 minutes. We almost see a 3/4 increase in the amount of water recommended, going from 4 liters up to almost, I would say based on the chart, about 6 liters, 7 liters. Our active individuals, generally 8 liters, and then our very active individuals, 12 liters today, and more as that dry bulb temperature goes up. So it's a factor of 2 things. What's the temperature that we're exercising in, and how much activity are we doing? The hotter it is, the more active we are, the more we need to drink. So what does that mean for me? How do I get to something for me personally? Fortunately, we have some general baselines. General rule for every single person in this room, 8 ounces of fluid per hour for the first 10 hours of your day. That totals 80 ounces.
That's a lot of water.
It's a decent amount of water. And we're going to hold that for a second because there are some considerations to make. This doesn't need to be an hour by the hour. This is an average. So if you drink first thing out of bed, 24 ounces of water, that could count for 3 hours of your day. It could be 3 hours before you have water again. That's okay. We're focusing on the average. The reason why we focus on the first 10 hours of the day is because of something that we spoke about in the other 2 lectures, circadian rhythm. Our body is aligned in a way that we expect water at a certain cadence, and that certain cadence allows our cells to use that water more effectively. What this also does is, if you think about the timing of the first 10 hours of your day, at the end of those 10 hours, what are we starting to do? We're starting to wind down. And what do we want to avoid during the night? Exactly. So the last thing we want to do is wait till the end of the day to have these 80 ounces, knowing that we're going to be up and up and up all night long. So it is a simple strategy. And when we talk about fluid, that fluid can be just about anything. We're not talking about water specifically. This amount should be adjusted based on heat. If you're exercising outside, it should be adjusted based on exercise duration, how much exercise you're doing. Sauna, if you're somebody who likes to sauna, sauna drives a lot of water out of the body. We need to consider that. And then high protein intake. So high protein intake, because of the influence high protein intake can have on the kidneys, we might need to increase your water intake. So hydration during exercise also has its own equation that's very, very helpful. It's called the Galpin equation. If we were to take our body weight in pounds and divide it by 30, that's the number of ounces that you should be consuming during exercise every 15 to 20 minutes. And what that's going to do, if you remember our heart rate chart, that Galpin equation is effectively going to keep you on this lower, more attractive line than this second, higher, less attractive line where we're going to see our performance start to decrease. So speaking in numbers, let's use the easy number of 100 pounds. You're a 100-pound person. We divide that by 30, and we've got a very reasonable amount of ounces to be drinking every 15 to 20 minutes. I think that's like between 3 and 4 ounces. It's a swig. The cups in the gym, they're 7 ounces. It's even half of one of those. I think we can all afford having a gulp or two of water every 15 to 20 minutes when we're active, if you're not already. If you're exercising in hot temperatures or sweating or saunaing, we want to increase that number by an additional 50 to 100%. So essentially we double. We go from a half a glass to a full glass every 15 to 20 minutes. As a general rule, if we want to look at the numbers, if you're saunaing for 30 minutes, 8 to 16 ounces of water, that's about one of those larger cups that's on top of the cooler right now. And if you've been in a sauna for 30 minutes, you know that you're probably draining about that much out of your body in that window of time. So electrolytes, when do they matter? When do we need to focus on something that's not just water, but also adding in something that's going to add vitamins and minerals back into our body? If we're sweating a lot, if we're training in excess of 45 minutes, if we're doing sauna, if we're in a hot environment, if we're experiencing cramping, if you have a history of cramping, it might be worth considering being proactive and adding in electrolyte replacement to your water on a regular basis. There's really no downside to including more electrolytes in your water. Those which are not used, they're going to find a way out. Sodium, and the reason why electrolytes are important, because it helps with nerve signaling. It helps with nerve signaling, meaning muscle contractions, your performance, reaction time, your ability to use your body during sport and play. And then it also helps with fluid retention in the bloodstream, because if we go back, we remember that 2/3 of our water and electrolytes are being held inside of our cells. Options to help with this electrolyte replacement: LMNT, this is something that we do have in the pro shop. They're the little packets. They are very, very, very salty. My recommendation would be not to use an entire packet in a bottle of water. Find an amount that works well for you. There's a lot of other products on the market that are available as well. Liquid IV being one of them. I think there's another brand called Rehydrate, but don't discount the influence that simply some sea salt and some lemon can have as well. If you fill your bottle up in the morning, crank or two of salt, little squeeze of lemon, that's going to help with that electrolyte replacement. Almost a zero cost, high impact addition. Water quality, there is a school of thought on water quality mattering and how it influences your overall hydrated state. And it usually arises from whether we're from our water source. Are we using tap water? Are we using filtered water? Are we using hydrogen water or reverse osmosis? All of these things have pros and cons to it. Almost all cons associated with tap water. Tap water, we can go online and find out what the quality is right here in 34110. You plug it in onto Google, you're going to see that we're well within ranges for certain things, we're well outside of ranges for certain things. And some of those things that are bad are going to be those heavy metals or those PFAs, the forever chemicals. They're not filtered out through normal tap water. And when we're drinking it, yes, we are ingesting those. I'm sure at home that you're using some sort of water filtering system. Highly encourage whenever possible to drink filtered water as opposed to tap water, because it's just an easy way to avoid something that's harming our health. And when those heavy metals and PFAs are absent, our cells actually use that water better. They're able to better recognize and utilize. If you're somebody who has a whole house reverse osmosis system that incorporates your water filtration system and your drinking water, that's great. But again, there are also some cons to a reverse osmosis system because it's pulling a lot of the electrolytes and some of the other minerals out of the water. So if you're strictly drinking only water from an RO system, low cost, high impact would be to get some mineral drops, magnesium specifically, so that you're adding that good stuff back into your water. Magnesium drops or tablets, zero taste to them. We're just adding something back into the water that has been filtered out by the reverse osmosis system. Types of water, a lot of these are more for marketing purposes. You walk down Publix, we have an entire aisle of water. It's still bizarre that there are that many different varieties to it. Didn't know that we could have so many different options of spring and pure and distilled, but they all do have something different going on. Mineral-rich water can really help with muscle contraction. It can help with cramp prevention, managing blood pressure, and with nerve firing, again, because we're just getting some nice natural sources of minerals added back into the body that all directly influence our hydration status. Hydrogen water, this is a relatively new one. Has anyone tried or seen, aware of hydrogen water? Yeah, so it's I'd say within the last year, maybe 2 years, that we're starting to see it pop up on the market. Emerging evidence suggests a recovery benefit associated with it, and a lot of that is because not the water itself, but because of the pH in the water. The pH in the water makes it more readily usable by the cells to absorb and hold on to. It essentially gets you hydrated faster. But don't let the marketing fool you that it's the hydrogen, more expensive water that's doing it. It's just the fact that the water is a better pH balance, which can be, you can find better pH balanced water through other means than very expensive hydrogen water. So let's roll through some hydration myths, and you're going to help me out on this one. Everyone should follow the 8x8 rule. Are we aware of the 8x8 rule? This is a real oldie. 8 glasses of 8 ounces a day. So let's roll it back. This was a statement or a generalization made way back in the mid-1940s, where the recommendation was 1 milliliter of water per calorie based on a daily energy intake of between 1,900 calories and 2,400 calories. And that equation boiled down to 8 ounces every 8 hours, or excuse me, 8 ounces 8 times a day. What most people don't know is that if you read into this guidance, the expectation was that you got these 8 ounces of water 8 times a day through your food, not through water. So this is an area that has been completely discredited based on what its initial purpose was. And this is something that we still hear and we talk about. Well, I have my 8 ounces. There is no science backing to that whatsoever. That is a busted myth. It's not a good, it gets you 64 ounces of water, but we still need a little bit more in excess of that. Caffeine is a diuretic. True. Caffeine is a diuretic. Caffeine can induce an increase in urine output, but you won't lose more than you take in. So is it a positive or a negative balance if we have a cup of coffee? So this is another one that's often very misunderstood. Caffeine does not have a negative outcome associated with it. So if we have a cup of coffee, roughly 100 milligrams of caffeine, and that's in about an 8-ounce cup, we're still hydrating. We might not be hydrating as much as if we had an 8-ounce glass of water, but we are still in a net positive hydration status from coffee. So if we were to do it as a fraction, you're still hydrating about 60 to 70% from that cup of coffee. It might make you pee a little bit more, urinate a little more, but we are still hydrating from coffee. So that's a myth. Alcohol is a diuretic. Creates a net loss of fluid to antidiuretic hormone, ADH suppression. ADH suppression means you pee or urinate more. That one is true. Alcohol robs your body of water. Alcohol, another strike for alcohol. Nothing good coming out of it. So if you were to have a glass of Chardonnay, a beer, a gin and tonic, whatever it is, you are losing water. It is pulling it from your system because it's activating or deactivating your ADH hormone. It's causing you to urinate more, and when that's happening, the fluid is moving through you at a more rapid pace than we're able to absorb. And last one, you can't overhydrate. That is false. The concentration of sodium inside of your body can get too low. The result, when this happens, it's called hyponatremia. Essentially, we have watered down our bloodstream, and that's a bad situation that nobody wants to be in. So there is a way to drink too much. We want to be mindful of that. It is usually associated with people who do a lot of ultra distance style or activities out in the sun. Our construction workers have a huge risk associated with that because their bloodstream essentially gets watered down. They're not taking in the appropriate amount of electrolytes in conjunction with straight water. So now that you all are hydration professionals, well, our couple takeaways. Everyone is different. Your recommendation is going to be different from yours, from yours, from yours, from yours, from yours, and so on. We are our best biologists. Trial and error on yourself. See what works best for you. When in doubt, resort back to those couple equations as a baseline and then manipulate around to find out what works well within your system.
I have something to add to this. I have terrible stenosis in my neck. So I went to the chiropractor, something that everybody uses here, decided to try it. And he took an x-ray. And he said to me, I need to drink more water. What does that have to do with my neck, right? Apparently, this cushy part in between our vertebrae needs to be hydrated, and mine's not.
Yep.
And I was like, really? He goes, as you get older, that's why people, this is in my neck, not my back. That's why people shrink, old people, because everything just keeps going, you know, the cushy part is gone, and it just flattens, you know, makes you shorter. So another reason to drink a lot of water.
Yep. That's that interstitial fluid that we spoke about. That's about 1% of our total body water. That's the fluid in the spinal canal. The discs in the spinal canal love to be hydrated. We love a healthy back. Drinking a little bit more water is one way to keep it that way.
You guys have seen those photos online, which you have, I'm sure, of like elderly people actually, and you look at the cognitive function of someone who is hydrated versus non-hydrated, and it's amazing your brain is lit up when you're hydrated, and it's absolutely dead when you're not. And it is incredible.
2 to 5% of body loss is where we see almost carbon copy similarities between somebody who has some advanced stages of Alzheimer's just from being dehydrated. Possibly the highest return on investment variable in human performance. Just drink a little more, be mindful of when you need to use electrolytes. Also a great way to help with cramp prevention. For our active individual, again, you know it, super painful involuntary muscle contractions, typically associated with one of two things. Electrolyte imbalance associated with the loss of fluid, overuse, and there are some medications that are going to directly influence or make you more likely to experience a cramp. Not all of them are hydration specifically related. The majority of them, however, can be addressed by hydrating properly. So there are two different types of cramps. There are heat cramps, which are more common in those who are active or are outside with heat loss, in heat causing fluid loss, and there are fatigue cramps. So if you've ever gone on a vacation where you've gone on a very, very long hike or a very, very long walk in a territory that you've never been before, and you've started to experience cramping in the legs, or if you've played tennis for a much longer window of time than you should have played tennis for, and you've experienced cramping in the leg, that is a fatigue-induced cramp. That's when your muscles are working harder and getting stuck in a contracted state. It's typically because we have overexerted ourselves. Hydration helps with both of these, but progressive training matters as well. So if we're talking about heat cramps, gradually exposing ourselves to more heat. We use the sauna as an example. First time in a sauna, you might be able to tolerate 10 minutes. Next time you might tolerate 12, 15, 20. It's progressive. This way you're exposing yourself safely in a way that your body is to maintain the electrolytes in your bloodstream a little bit better and reduce the likelihood of cramps. Similar with fatigue cramps, if you've ever trained for a marathon, you don't just go out and run 26.2 miles. There's a training pattern associated with it, usually over the course of many weeks or many months. Other causes, medications, specifically statins and diuretics, because it's pushing fluid and electrolytes out of your system faster than your body is able to absorb and utilize them. Hypothyroidism can have an influence on hydration and therefore cause you to be more predisposed to cramps. and then diabetes. Specifically in the legs, if you're aware of neuropathy, which is that loss of sensation and feeling in the feet, that is very strongly related with nerve damage. And that nerve damage can also then make you cramp more. Common cramp locations, again, they're usually in the larger parts of the body and the larger parts that get a lot more repetitive use. So our calves are very prone to it. Our quadriceps, the top side of the thighs, are prone to it. And then our hamstrings are very prone to it, the back side of the legs. Neck to a lesser extent, and again, that's because of how much utilization we have of our neck. We look around. We are mobile individuals. We like to stare at things. So the neck gets a lot of work because of that. Duration of a cramp typically lasts for a sliding scale window of time. They can be very, very quick, and they can be very, very long. Usually those that last for a longer duration are because we weren't listening to some earlier indicators of a cramp starting to build up, where you might have had a little bit of a twinge, and then we push through it, push through it, that twinge turns into a more consistent and lasting cramping experience. But it's always going to be an underlying reflection of two things. How hydrated are you, and how much overuse have you put your body through? Again, I'll use the experience of marathon training. You can usually look back in a training schedule and see how much additional volume you've added over the course of the few weeks and identify, hey, I jumped from running 10 miles in week 1 to 40 miles in week 2. That was probably too much. This is why I'm experiencing cramping. So if you're somebody who does exercise regularly, I highly encourage you to kind of keep a little workout journal of how you feel after activities, how you feel with exercise, so that when you inevitably face some cramping or face an injury, you have something to return back on. It's like, what was the key driver? Why do my calves feel the way they do today? Oh, it's because I did this, this, and this differently than I usually do. Signs and symptoms. It begins with a little bit of stiffening in the muscle, and that's just that shortening of the contraction phase or getting stuck in the contracted phase. Sudden muscle fatigue, where the legs can immediately begin to feel weak, and then intense pain. If you've had a cramp, you know the pain that I'm talking about, that Charlie horse, especially in the middle of the night. Those are arguably the worst. Last thing you expect to happen, and then suddenly you're grabbing your leg. Yep, looks like a good knot. Looks like something that we're familiar with in this group. Often when you touch it, it's either hard to the touch or you can feel those involuntary twitches associated with it. When severe cramps occur, they're going to appear knotted and shaped differently. Really just generally uncomfortable. Let's talk about our protocol for prevention. Hydrating early in the day. We take this back to over the first 10 hours of our day, we want to have that average, bless you, of 8 ounces an hour. If you know that you're going to be very active, maybe you front end your day, so we're drinking more leading into activity. Adding electrolytes if we know that we're going to be exercising out in the heat. Progressive training loads. This is where a training journal is really helpful. Magnesium intake. Magnesium intake is very readily available again in powders and drops and capsules that you can add to water. That's the electrolyte that is most associated with cramp prevention, so we can focus on adding that more into our water. If you're somebody who is prone to cramps during the night, doing some mild stretching before bed has shown to be very helpful. And whenever we talk about stretching, a stretch should be enjoyable. When you are stretching any muscle group, whether it's upper body or lower body, my rule of thumb is if we feel that our heart rate is accelerating, we're stretching too far. It should be a position that we can hold ourselves in for a length of time, 45 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, 2 minutes, where we progressively see our flexibility improve, and it's just enjoyable. It shouldn't be something that you put yourself through pain to do. If we're in pain when stretching, we need to take a step back, both literally and figuratively, of ease off the stretch and why am I hurting when I'm stretching this particular body part? And then finally, you can always elevate the end of your bed, whether you have a bed that allows you to elevate the feet, or you can utilize some pillows underneath the blanket. That's going to just help with that venous return cycle, some more blood through the body, and that can help with cramp prevention during the night. So monitoring your hydration as it's associated with cramp prevention, our urine color should be maintained at a pretty consistent pale yellow. This is a tried and true way of doing a double check on how hydrated am I. Morning body weight stability. I like to do morning body weight stability because, again, it tells me about how well I did the day before. It should be relatively steady. It might have some peaks and valleys to it. If don't go on the scale the day after Thanksgiving, you're gonna be angry at yourself. It's no reflection on hydration status. It's just because we had a larger amount of food the day before. So for the most part, morning body weight can be a telling of our hydration status. Resting heart rate. So resting heart rate, if we were to take our pulse 7 days in a row, and on day 7, it jumped from a resting pulse of 50 to 60, it's probably telling of one of two things. One, we might be coming down with some sort of a head cold, or 2, this is a day that I probably hydrated very poorly the day before, and that's caused a spike in my heart rate. Energy and focus, we spoke about how focus can be influenced by hydration. You know that foggy feeling, you know yourselves very, very well. If you feel that foggy sensation coming on, or you're moving through a workout where you're feeling very lightheaded, or just like moving through snow, it's probably a reflection on hydration. And then finally, if you're somebody who cramps very frequently, time to look at how much am I drinking on a daily basis. So when cramps do occur, here are some quick hitter techniques to help alleviate them. And immediately giving yourself the opportunity to consume some more fluids, specifically with added electrolytes. Gentle massaging of the muscle, just try to ease some tension off of it. If you have a percussion tool or availability to a percussion tool like we do in the gym, that's something that can help draw more blood flow to the area. It tells our body to relax as well. And when we can tell our body to relax using vibration therapy, that's going to cause a cramp to release. Alternating hot and cold can be helpful for those same reasons. It draws blood flow to the area when we apply heat. It pushes blood flow away or constricts when we provide cold. Pumping blood flow through that influenced area is going to encourage a cramp to settle back. Stretching, again, mild, no acceleration of the heart rate. And up to 3 times throughout the day, and specifically before bed. Might have one more. Last line of defense, as always, looking at medicinal support. Voltaren or BioFreeze over the counter and can help with pain management associated with cramping. It can even help alleviate cramping through menthol and some of the other ingredients in the gel solution. Anti-inflammatory, I don't particularly encourage the use of anti-inflammatory pills like Advil or ibuprofen just because of the way that it influences the gut, but that's obviously something that can be used to help with pain management associated with cramping. Daily hydration template: morning, 16 ounces. Midday, even distribution setting. If you're training, we look back to the Galpin equation to help us know how much water we should be drinking every 15 to 30 minutes. And then evening, we taper it down so we don't have those urges in the middle of the night that make us get out of bed. What questions do you have?
I have a friend that swears by Celtic salt. And what is that versus just, you had commented about sea salt and lemon as an electrolyte, and she's got it and takes this little dram of Celtic salt. It's like, this is the lifesaver.
To me, it's salt. To me, for the most part, all salts are created equal. All salts have a varying amount of electrolytes to them, sodium specifically. They're a great tool, low cost, high impact. So whether it's Celtic salt, pink Himalayan salt, good old Morton's, a pinch of it can go a long way.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Is there any harm in drinking electrolyte with just one glass or container of electrolyte every day, even if you're not exercising heavily that day?
So the question is, can I drink electrolytes every day, even on days that I'm not exercising? The only thing I would be mindful of is, what is the sodium content in that electrolyte? There are, again, a number of different products available on the market. If it's a day that I'm gonna be relatively sedentary, I'm probably gonna try to reduce the amount of sodium intake that I have. But there are a lot of products that have electrolytes in them that have a lower amount of sodium specifically. And that's what I would opt for on those non-training days.
One more question. Is it true that drinking electrolytes can raise your blood pressure?
So drinking can raise your blood pressure, so yes.
No.
So if it's gonna have an immediate influence on your blood pressure if you have between 8 and 16 ounces of water. That's temporary, it's not lasting. It's not over the course of time, if we have more electrolytes, am I gonna raise my blood pressure for all time?
If you have high blood pressure, you should be really careful of your intake of the electrolyte drinks because of the sodium content.
Because of the sodium content. And that's where, when we look at something like LMNT, which I believe has 1,000 or 1,200 milligrams of salt, that's a lot of salt. And LMNT is great, but it might not be that you need to have as much as you. You might need a half of a pack because I exercise out in the heat a lot, I'm a heavier sweater than you, who might not do more of their exercising inside. So we wouldn't have the same quantity. So in that circumstance, yes, it can raise your blood pressure, and it's introducing more sodium than we need.
It's probably another old wives' tale, but I was told that potassium was a good thing for avoiding cramps, like to eat a half a banana
Yep.
a day if you have cramps.
Yeah, so potassium, another electrolyte. We have sodium, we have magnesium, we have potassium. Those are the big three that are often referenced. So the reason why we suggest a banana is because of the high potassium amount specifically, and also because of the carbohydrate that's in a banana as well. It's gonna help, if you have it in conjunction with water, drive that hydration to the cells. So bananas for hydration, great tool. Bananas for cramp alleviation, great tool. You had a question here?
I have a question.
Beautiful.
Magnesium, if you want to take a magnesium supplement, if you go to the magnesium aisle and look, there's like magnesium, magnesium, there are like 20,000 different magnesium supplements. What would you say is the best one?
That's a difficult question to answer, and this is something that's very challenging and a longer-winded answer, is that especially if you're buying a lot of supplements online, they're being sold from China and they don't actually have what they say that's in them. If you're buying them from the store, from more of a big name brand, if you're getting them from Publix or Walgreens or CVS, any of them that say magnesium, you know that what you're getting is magnesium. Don't get too far into the weeds as what the specific type of magnesium is. More of that is just marketing specific.
Even knowing that glycinate passes the blood-brain barrier versus citrate?
Yeah, so that's going to be a little bit more specific to the individual, whether you tolerate one better than the other.
I switched, and citrate also for absorption, isn't it? Also with K and D?
Correct. So there are certain other vitamins and minerals that we can take in conjunction with certain electrolytes that are going to encourage our system to absorb them quicker or to even slow them down. So that's where we also get into the conversation of what medications are we on, because they can have some conflicting effects.
I think it's important to note that Amazon is a marketplace, and what you purchase on there is no guarantee that what you're getting is what it says you're getting. I think you probably already know that.
Yep.
And then again, glass bottles, darker glass bottles for integrity of your
Yep.
vitamins as well.
Glass bottles is a great recommendation. I think you have one. Do you have another question, Mrs. Baldi?
Oh,
No.
no.
Yeah, we love Amazon. We can love Amazon for a lot of things. Try not to love Amazon for your supplement sources. It's the world we live in.
Yeah, thanks.
So we have, for the season, we have one more longevity lecture coming up. I believe it's on Friday, maybe April 1st or April 2nd. We'll focus on the centenarian decathlon. This is something a little bit more to pitch around and have fun with. I encourage you to come and bring some thoughts. The concept of the centenarian decathlon is when you're 100 years old, what do you still want to be able to do in your activities of daily living? And what can we do now that can influence and allow you to still be able to do those things? Picking up a grandchild, bringing in the groceries, still being outside playing pickleball. So it's a fun. So that one's going to be much more interactive. We'll just have some round circle discussion, and there's a way to approach training and lifestyle that will get you where you want to be.